Hello and welcome to this Gartner webinar, Gen AI, what happens in 2023, what's coming in 2024. This presentation will provide actionable objective insight, expert guidance, and solutions that enable faster, smarter decisions and strong performance on your most critical priorities. I am Ankit, the operator for this session. Before we get started, I have a few tips to help enhance your webinar experience. Around the video player, you will find a variety of ways to interact with the session. We encourage you to participate by clicking Ask the Speaker box to submit your questions and thoughts throughout this program. You can either submit a question anonymously, or if you choose, your name, title, and company can be visible along with your question. To download a copy of the presentation slides and other helpful resources, just navigate to the bottom of the page. Throughout the program, you can rate this session and share feedbacks on the insight provided. To submit your rating, click Rate Session below the player. A box will open for you to select 1 to 5 Hz. Please note that 5 Hz is the top rating. Share your feedbacks on the insight provided in the Leave Further feedback box and click Send. This webinar is being recorded. You can watch this presentation again and find more great insight on demand at gartner.com/webinars. Now, I'd like to welcome Gartner's distinguished Vice President Analyst Eric Brezenou, Andrew Frank, Aviva Letan, Vice President Analyst Anthony Mullen, and Senior Director Analyst Uma Shala and Radu Miklos. Thanks for joining us. And Eric, now I'll turn it over to you.
And welcome to the webinar of what we've seen in 2023, what we are expecting in 2024 for AI. There's no doubt, just to achieve it, there was a lot going on in 2023 with AI. AI has been around for a very long time, and we've been in the AI summer all the way to the end of 2022. People were adopting those technologies, and our focus was on how to implement those technologies by the end of 2022. In the middle of the AI summer, a heat wave hit us. It was a generative AI heat wave. What happened was the accessibility and the awareness that generative AI brought to the scene suddenly accelerated the movement of that AI summer and brought to us a lot of members of the late majority of the organizations that have not yet joined the bandwagons of AI. So 2023 was quite a year on people experimenting, debating, even at home at the dinner table, on being able to see what Gen AI does, doesn't do, what can we do with it? Is it magic? Is it sentient? We've seen it all. In 2023, it was the year of exploration and prototyping. At the beginning of 2024, we are back to reason. What we've witnessed in 2022 now is happening to a much larger number of enterprises and organizations that we do talk to. But the problem remains. How do we operationalize that technology? And it's really around three main axes that we see 2024 unfolding forward with those kind of technologies. How do we evaluate the value and the return on investment of these techniques that we are starting to use and we have used and experimented with and prototyped in 2023, but not just in isolation? Generative AI joins a slew of AI techniques that are starting to be implemented together to solve business problems. So the next part of that is how do we integrate and scale AI to fit the bill of all these different processes that we are working on. And we call it AI engineering. And we have a framework and some topics around that too. And finally, how do we make sure that carefully moving forward means that while we are adopting those techniques, we do it safely and we manage the technical debt that inevitably is going to come around when we start unpacking and looking at how will this technique look like in 2025, 2026, and as we move forward. So 2024 for us is the year of back to reason, back to where we were during the AI summer, which is again a lot harder than it used to be. But at the same time, we still have the same questions: value, implementation and integration, and also the technical debt management. And for that, I've asked a few of my colleagues to come and be able to present on major key trends and areas as we move toward in 2024 to see what the differences are. Of course, the markets have totally expanded now. There's so much more choices in terms of being able to try to find out whether or not what we have seen in 2023 can be integrated in our stacks, how it can be done, and who is present for that. Let's look at what happened in 2023 and what we expect in that case for 2024. In security, many of us have looked into the fact that many of the implementations we were ready to go under have been problematic because people are starting to ask questions around regulation, around security, and risk to be taken for that. And Aviva will take us through this. What about general business? We talked about the value. There's a lot going on also that we've seen in 2023, made us ready for 2024, and what's really possible under what we are doing. And I take Andrew to go to that with me. And finally, Uma will talk to us about what a lot of us care about, customer service. We implementing all these techniques. We've been around for quite a while and everything. And yet we keep yelling at our chatbots or conversational agents on a regular basis because we want human service. Has AI really, and as generative AI in particular, helped in that domain? What have we seen through those experimentation? What are we expecting for 2024? So with that, let me pass it on to Radu to be able to talk to us about the first part of this, which is the marketplace.
Thank you, Eric. And continuing with the analogy of the heat wave, interestingly enough, the heat wave happened during the winter of 2022 to 23. So, I'm here to talk a little bit about what's happening in the vendor space, obviously what we've seen in 2023, and also what we're expecting in 2024. So the initial kind of shock to the system, obviously, that the GPT type models brought to the market was kind of met with a little bit of confusion at the beginning. Some of the vendors that were not knew that these things were in development but didn't know when they would hit. That was probably one of the first reaction, right? How are we going to actually react to this? How are we going to plan? How are we going to get our head wrapped around this? Followed with a little bit of anxiety, obviously, because of the learning curves that were to follow. But once folks start to really understand and diving into the technology and really starting to understand how they can apply it to their products, that's when the planning really started, and the delivery aspects. Vendors in the tech space and even the services space, obviously, they're dealing with these very interesting learning curves, and there are two big learning curves that they've been dealing with in 2023. One was, how do I obviously add Gen AI, or do I add Gen AI to my capabilities, and how do I go to market for these new features? How do I price? How do I package, and so on and so forth? And the other one, just like any other enterprise, how do I use Gen AI to accelerate my business internally, my operations, and all the other aspects of running the business? The other thing that we've noticed in 2023 was this approach to the stack, as Eric mentioned. Obviously, underneath the generative AI applications, you have the support of the infrastructure, the providers of models, and that whole AI engineering kind of layer that needs to support the applications that are infused with generative AI. And what we started to see more and more, obviously, in 2003, is a little bit of a reaction towards the cost of that particular stack and its ability to actually be opened, a little bit more open and more approachable by a lot bigger development pool. So the cost pressure on that lower stack in engineering, in the provisioning of AI models through APIs and infrastructure has been tremendous in 2023. However, by end of 2023, based on some of the surveys and research we've been doing, about 2/3 of the vendors already delivered Gen AI products, with another a fifth of the vendors, or 20%, in the piloting phase, which is a huge number of folks already kind of delivering and piloting and developing Gen AI capabilities from a vendor perspective. Some of the things we're going to see in 2024. 2024 is going to be very interesting because now people really do expect this kind of breakneck speed of change happening, right? So we're almost used to it. So we're going to expect it, obviously, in 2024. We will see some interesting dynamics between specialty vendors, vendors that offer certain types of offering that are, let's say, more narrow, more specialized, versus the big ecosystems of the hyperscalers. And it's going to be a very interesting combination of either competition, but also partnership within this ecosystem. There's also a very interesting dynamic happening between startups and established companies. With Gen AI, the barriers to entry are lowered, and now we're seeing big opportunity for disruption potentially coming from small, companies that are just getting funded in the last 2-3 years. Gen AI slowly will start moving from a differentiator, which was seen more in 2023, as more table stakes in 2024, meaning that the ability to monetize these features may or may not be extensive for the vendors because it will be, again, expected and table stakes. But if you don't have it within markets where Gen AI is very applicable, you may have to you may lose market share potentially. Gen AI driven automation, LLM chains, agents. This is the year where we can potentially see a massive investment from vendors and also potentially supporting in the enterprises of this concept of how do you think about chaining together Gen AI methodologies? How do you think about taking actions through Gen AI capabilities and so on and so forth? So that will be this Gen AI driven automation could have a massive impact starting with this year. And as we mentioned earlier, 2024 is the year of implementation.